Now we're going.
All right. Take number 3.
Okay, welcome to My Therapy Hat podcast. Today, or I guess tonight, we're getting started a little late tonight.
Mm-hmm.
I have 2 of my kids here, Micah and Sarah, who have their own podcast.
Yup.
The reason why I wanted both of you to be here with me today is because I have a topic that was brought up by, of course, a client. We were talking about kids cussing at home.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you both have different experiences of this type of, I guess, behavior. So before we get into this and I ask you guys some questions, I had written down, because I did a little Googling today, because I told Mike I don't have anything to talk about when I do.
You always have something to talk about.
I have something to talk about.
Certified yapper.
So I lied.
You always have something to talk about.
So kids cussing at home. And this is what Google had to tell me. They're exploring their language. They're expressing their emotions, seeking attention, which I don't like that one, but it's on there. They are mimicking others, which we all know that kids are little,
Monkey see,
sponges,
monkey do.
and social fitting. So they're, trying to fit in socially to their peers, and power plays. That's what they said. That's why that's why kids cuss at home. And I was like, that's interesting. So what has your experiences been? Because I know they're different.
We'll start with Sarah.
Yeah. My mom swears a lot, like she's like a sailor, but me and my brothers never inherently cussed a lot as kids. I would say I did the most, but I pushed the boundaries of what I could say. Like, there wasn't explicitly words I couldn't say. Like, you couldn't say shit, fuck, all of those things. Like, it was more of it was a bottom line. Like, don't cuss because you're, a child. But I would always push the boundary of what I could say. Like, I remember the first time I said crap in front of my dad, and I was like, this is awesome. And then
got away with it.
And then once I realized I could get away with more and more, by the time I was like a senior in high school, I was, I was cussing. I felt so cool. I'm like, oh my gosh, I cuss in front of my parents. I'm so cool. It was another experience too. It was I went on a lake trip with 2 of my friends. I know, Finnegan. I went on a lake trip with 2 of my friends, and I called my dad to help me set up a tent or something. And I said the word bitch on the phone, and they were like, oh, you can say bitch to your dad? So, yeah, it wasn't necessarily you can't say this and this. I just pushed boundaries of what I could say.
It's funny. I had a completely different.
Yeah.
I was born into the realm of video games, so from a very.
You gotta kick him out.
We can't.
Finnegan decided that he needed to
he
talk
had some
about
things
his
to
cussing.
say.
Maybe he cusses. I don't know.
I think he does.
I think he does.
Yeah.
Every time you
He
pick him
gets
up, he just
cussed
goes,
out.
fuck.
Yeah, he does.
We call him a solid ass cat. That's
a solid ass cat.
That's a motherfucker right there.
solid ass cat, solid ass jerk. Yeah, he gets it. Let me tell you. So I'm sure he wants to express himself. Okay, go ahead, Micah. Sorry.
I'll give him attention.
I grew up in the realm of video games, so from a young age, whenever I could start playing online with my friends, I think it was game over from that point on. Because when I'm playing with my friends who's playing online with strangers, and they're also cussing and just throwing out all of this language as well, that I was like, oh my God, I can do that. And so I always knew that at the time when I was young, both my parents didn't like it, but I don't think I cared a little bit, because I was like, well, obviously I don't want to get grounded, because that means I can't play video games with my friends. But at the same time, I was just like, when I'm in the moment and I'm playing, I was like,
Finn is attention seeking right now.
Holy crap,
he's
dude.
Not, yeah.
I'll say it. He's being a whore.
this is what I
You gotta
mean.
get out.
We need to kick him out during episodes.
I'll do it.
But it got to a point to where it didn't matter. I didn't care, because all my friends were doing it, and we're playing games online and everything. And I think it definitely got pushed to the limit of me not having to care whenever you and dad got divorced. Because then you cussed like a sailor all the time.
Cut loose, man.
And dad didn't, at that moment, didn't even care. And so I was able to just say whatever I wanted, cuss wise. And so, yeah, I mean, I cuss a lot now, and I get shit for it all the time from people. But I'm just more of at this point where I'm like, shut up, shut the fuck up. Like, I'm going to live my life, and I'm going to say however I want to say it. But if you're living a life and you're over there not cussing, that's fine too.
Also,
Just,
like, what do you say when you stub your toe? Dag nabbit.
oh, like, work with
Say
someone
shit
who's
like a
just like,
person.
I don't cuss at all. And I'm like,
Cool.
cool. Do you want a cookie or?
Neato.
But they do say stuff like that where they're just like, oh, fudge sticks, and I'm like, just say the word.
You want
but
to.
let's go back to like when you were a kid and because I remember when I was thinking about this today, you know, thinking about because I know that I did cuss around you.
Especially in the car. Holy crap.
Okay, and I still do that.
Holy
moly.
That was when it like got turned on to me where I was like, oh my.
Yeah, the first time I heard my mom say the word fuck, she was in the car. It was like road rage.
Well,
The first
you
time.
know, there you feel like you're safe. Just like
You're in
behind
your own little car. You're
Yeah.
in your own little 2-ton moving house.
But I remember I did cuss in front of you. And one of the things was because I knew that you going out into the world, you weren't going to be sheltered from that. There wasn't going to be this invisible bubble around you where it filtered out all the curse words, you know? And it wasn't that maybe I was trying to desensitize you, or maybe I was just becoming myself because this is how I talk. This is who I am. And when I looked at these, like exploring language, I can remember your cousin, Micah, Trenton, when he was a baby, and I was over at my brother's house and we were watching him play, and there was one of those big toy boxes, and he leaned in. He's a little tiny guy. He leaned in and he fell in, and the lid fell on him, and he goes, "Well, shit." We started dying laughing, and my brother goes, "I know we shouldn't be laughing at that." And I said, "Why not? It's funny." And we were taught, my brother and I, we were taught you just don't cuss. But then we always had like the grandparents. My grandpa would say, "I'm going to kick your arse." You know, very
Arse?
arse. It's very Irish. You know, he didn't say ass. He said arse. Okay, well, you said arse. It's okay. My granny, she would light you up. My papa, you never heard him say anything, but under his breath, he would say it, and you'd be like, "Ooh, caught you." My grandma, she would do the, "Well, bless your heart," and you know damn well what that means. "Well, bless your heart." Oh,
Bless your heart.
and she'd wink at me like, I knew what that meant. Southern ladies always know what that meant.
I see you, Grandma.
I see you, Grandma. You got it. You got that going. But back to like, I never thought that like I needed to shelter you from that. Because again, and this is when I was talking to my client, I asked this client, I said, "Well, in what context does this kid cuss you out?" Because I've been cussed out by a client in my office before, and I'm like, "Woo, that's a lot of words, and I don't know that I'm any of those." You know? But that person wasn't cussing at me; they were cussing at the situation. I just happened to catch it. And so, you know, as we're talking, you know, is this kid cussing you out? Is this kid like verbally abusing you? Because you can be verbally abusive with language. No, you know, and the way we talked about it, it was very similar to the way I felt. You could cuss in my home too, like what this says, express your emotions. Sometimes, and not a lot of people is going to agree with this, but sometimes those explicit words are emotions, are attached to an emotion.
It's like you said, stub your toe.
Stub your
What are you
toe.
gonna
You're
say?
in pain. This hurts. I'm angry. Shit. You know.
I dropped something for the third time after I picked it up. You know, yeah, I'm going to say something. And so as we talked through it, this child they're teaching this child that you can say this here in our home. You're safe in our home to say this. But what was the message that I gave you when you went to friend's house, Micah?
to be polite to their house rules. I think that was like the big thing, and obviously be polite to hosts and whatnot. But along with the house rules was depending on if they cussed or not, really.
Yeah.
Because most of the houses I went to, there was no cussing, and so there'd be times where I would have to, as a kid, I'd be like, "Oh, freak."
What the freak, dude?
The freak, dude. Oh, crap.
Dang it.
But I remember, like, going to friends' houses, and I would say, like, "Oh, shut up." And they'd look at me, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I never understood that. I was
I got
like,
that
shut
at
Or
up.
stupid. Like, oh,
Yeah.
you're being
Yeah.
stupid.
Like, oh,
Oh
I
my
remember
gosh.
like
Shit,
elementary
stupid.
school. Those were like big no words. It's like
Yeah.
you can't say stupid. You can't tell someone to shut up. Like I got that in elementary school a lot.
yeah.
And so you going to friend's house and you abiding by those rules. I always got the report that you were just so respectful. You and your sister, you were
I
so
tried.
respectful. You were, very helpful. They enjoyed having you. Oh my God, the ring.
You got a solicitor. He's
swear-
trying to
You need to
say
mute
something.
that whenever we start
I know.
recording.
I know I didn't think about it, but I feel like it's like magical, magic. But
What the hell?
what
the hell? Well, but that was, and so I knew like when you went, you were practicing what we had
Yeah.
talked about, that you weren't going to go and disrespect their rules, their norms, because our norm wasn't the same. And so that was one of the things that this client and we talked about was, what are the rules? And that was one of the things that down here where it says parents, what parents can do, establish clear rules. That was one of the things that, she was very good about. And she explained to me that these are our rules. This is how we've explained this. And, and I was like, I agree with that. I enjoy that. But that's one of the things was like establishing those clear rules. And so I highlighted that for her, that you've established these clear rules. This is understood. And then so when you get the report back from parents that like, oh, Micah's a good kid, or Sarah's, good kid, very helpful, very respectful, that they're abiding by those rules because they were clear to them.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing was, provide positive alternatives. Okay, there's where you get the shoot, fudge,
Dag nabbit
Yeah.
is a favorite.
And
Oh,
if
fudge
that-
sticks.
Fudge knuckles.
And if that's the route that a parent wants to go, then model the right behavior. Well, I felt like I was modeling the right behavior because this is I again, like I said, I'm not going to be able to shield you from everything. Limit exposure. So should I have limited your exposure to video
I don't
games?
think you could have, to be honest.
I don't
I
think it
mean,
would have
you would
mattered.
have had to like ground me all the time, or not have let Dad buy an Xbox.
Mm.
But I mean, even at that point, like I had a friend who didn't have an Xbox out of the friend group, and he had a Wii. He was still cussing up storms
Yeah.
when he had the chance.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think it's just like my generation is so much like our generation really is so
Yeah.
much harder to do that with, because
To do what?
put limiters on, I would say.
yeah, because we had access to fucking
Oh,
Everything. Like I had unrestricted internet access, and it's like even if I did, and like you didn't hear all of that stuff by playing video games, we went to public school.
yeah.
Like if it wasn't from our parents, we got it from our peers. Like even like middle school and high school,
Mhm.
Yeah.
like everybody did, including myself. So we
Oh,
would
and
have
I
gotten it either way.
I worked in an elementary school and I heard how kids talked. And I was
Yeah.
like, this is just, again, that was
They're
your generation.
way worse now.
I'm sure it's much worse now, but yes.
But yeah, I mean, it's much harder to put a cap on all of that stuff.
But it's not like even given all of that, like, I mean, I won't speak for everybody, obviously, but
I don't think it would have changed me.
I know when to put a lid on it too. I know like, I'm not swearing in church. Like, I know it's appropriate. It'd be funny if I could.
would.
It'd be funny if I could. I don't, but I could.
Well, and so to that point,
Mm-hmm.
when you push the limits and when you were
Yeah.
able to say these things, how did your parents react?
They thought it was funny. Like, my parents, my dad less so, but they still like they swear and all of that stuff, but yeah, they thought it was funny. Like they could tell I was pushing boundaries and like trying to get to say more. Like I don't know. I'm very lucky in terms of how kind of lax my parents were. But I think too it's because like I didn't do it in a way that was
Hurtful
yeah, or like
or
inappropriate.
harmful.
Like I said, like I knew when to push it, when not to push it. Like, so yeah, it was never really a problem. And like my dad thought it was hilarious. Like when I told him when I was in like elementary, I was in like 6th grade and I was on the volleyball team and I was not doing so great. I was like, this is freaking crap. He thought that was so funny because I'm 12 and he's like, that's really funny. Um, but I know like I had friends who were Mormon, for example, and it was not even remotely allowed. So when she was at school, she would let loose. She was like, fuck shit, all of that stuff. So, yeah, I guess I just got lucky when I would push those boundaries.
How about you? How did your dad and I react? What was our reaction to the words flying out of the room?
I mean, even though I paint the picture of Dad caring when I at like a younger age, I don't think he really cared as much because he knew what he was exposing me to for video games. Because I mean, I remember me playing my first rated M game at like age 5, I think.
Yeah.
And I remember me going to him and being like, I want to play. Like, I would go to him like daily and ask to see if I could play that. And it didn't have like a lot of cuss words in it, but it had blood and stuff.
Yeah.
But then, like, after that point, I was getting introduced to games that had a bunch of different stuff going on. So I was exposed to a lot of that stuff at early ages. I don't remember you doing much. I mean, I think it was more if I was like cussing at you guys is when we would get in trouble. So I don't think it was necessarily like a big bad thing. I know there might have been conversations of like, all right, keep it under this roof and not outside or blah, blah, blah. And we're like, okay. But like, I don't think it was that big of a deal for the most part. Cause I mean, me and Mia I think for the majority, we knew where we could say certain things. But yeah, I mean, I don't think you guys were really bashful on us when we did say it.
Well, because that's one of the things is don't overreact.
Yeah.
And I think that's, again...
Because it's like different if you were to ground us for saying it and then hours later you're like, we got to go to the store. We get in the car and you're like, oh, you motherfucker, and you sack of shit. And we're just like, so where is the line? I mean, that's like where a lot of frustration from a lot of my friends who weren't able to cuss a lot or do a lot of things, they'd see their parents do it and they're like, okay, but I don't know where the line is.
Like, why are you allowed to and I'm not?
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things as I was reading through this is I had to stop and reflect that if I'm going to model something, because I'm like that even with my clients, if I'm gonna ask you to do something, I'm gonna do it myself.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to have, you got to walk the walk, you got to talk the talk, and that's one of the things that I realized was raising you and knowing that I'm going to talk this way. I had to really take what was said with a grain of salt. And I had to put those, okay, we can talk like this in this house, but outside this house, there were the rules. I don't think that I ever really got on to you for expressing yourself because I knew it was an expression. And like you said earlier, the only time that you did get in trouble, maybe, I don't even remember, was if you were cussing at me.
Yeah.
Did that ever happen?
Yeah. I don't ever remember anything like that.
I mean, there's plenty of fights when we're growing up between if you would ground us for something or something like that. And I remember there would be times where we'd probably have small yelling competitions, but it wasn't like it was. I mean, it's stuff that you do when you're growing up as a kid.
Yeah.
To your parents,
It's
you
expected.
think your life is unfair or something like that. So, I mean, that's the only thing I would have to say on that.
Because I don't ever remember as I'm reflecting on this, and I was reflecting on that conversation with that client, and ask this client, well, does this kid cuss at you? Does this kid, is this abusive? No, very, very much under control.
Yeah.
And as I was reflecting back, I was like, I don't ever remember feeling like there was an out of control moment. I mean, like you said, we may have gotten heated. We may
The
have.
only out of control moment is when you had problem with technology. I think all your morals and standards kind of went out the window.
I hope you like getting put on blast today. He's
You
talking
know-
about your driving, your technology.
driving,
Oh my gosh.
I will have to
Me
say.
and Mia would sit there and we would watch you suffer for an hour because we'd be like, "Do you want us to help you?" And you're like, "No, fuck off." And we're like, we'd look at each other and we're like, "Okay, well, she's going
We'll
through
be back
it."
in an hour.
And then we come back in an hour and you've just completely given up and you're just like, we're like,
I've lost all hope.
You've lost all hope. And we're like, "Do you want us to help you now?" And you're like, "If you even can." And we're like, "We'll take a crack at it." And like 10 minutes later, we fix the problem. Or we're like, "Mom, there is nothing any of us could do. It's out of any of our capabilities." And you'd just be like,
I knew it.
what was the point?
I told you.
I knew it.
Told you so.
Yeah.
No, I do. I have, and that's the thing. I have anger issues. I really do. One of the things I've learned is myself, when I express that and get that out, I do feel a lot better.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's one of the things, like and working with kids and thinking back on this therapy session, I was, does it make you feel better? Well, sometimes, and sometimes it embarrasses me. I've had kids say, well, sometimes it embarrasses me. Okay, well, let's talk about that. Well, when I say the wrong cuss word, I had a kid say that one time. When I say the wrong cuss word, I'm like, when you say the wrong, is there a wrong cuss
right
word?
and
And
wrong
this
in
kid
certain
gave me an
situations?
example, and I was like, oh,
Like,
yeah,
that-
okay, good example. Yeah.
When you call a woman a bitch, that's probably a bad.
There is the wrong word that you can use.
Yeah.
And this person gave me that. But even like reflecting on this, like I know that I feel better sometimes. And I had a conversation with someone.
That's what ranting's for.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Ranting, venting. I mean, you're going to throw
Venting.
some words in there. You're going
I-
to sprinkle and pepper
Dopamine
them.
rush every time I do that.
Woo.
It's the best.
I know that recently when we started playing soccer,
Yeah.
Sarah has
I
never.
had a moment.
She had a moment where she cussed out another player
I
on the other
have-
team.
I will say, in my entire life, never really had like an anger like outburst at somebody. Like I've never really yelled at somebody or cussed someone out like that. I'm very non-confrontational, so I've never done that before. But this guy on our co-ed team, he was chatting in my ear, like he was like, "Oh, you're shit, like you're really bad, you and your boyfriend." And I was like, "Dude," and I just sat there. I was like, "The goal is 3-0. You have nothing to show for it but a fucking attitude." That's exactly what I said to him. And
I just remember on the car ride home.
I was not
She
well.
was-
Like there was this like, and I had to talk it over in therapy too, because I was like, I have no idea why, but I just felt so like guilty, but not about what I said to him, because in retrospect, he did deserve it and it was funny. But it was just like, I don't behave that way. Like I'm not that person, and that's what made me feel bad, because I was like, this didn't feel like me in the moment, and that was the worst feeling about it. Like in the moment, it felt great to tell this dude off, because after I did that, he didn't say anything. I was able to keep playing, and he like more or less left me alone. So
Did you
And I-
feel like
Yeah.
you were cussing at him instead of like to him?
I mean,
Because I
I
think
don't-
there's a difference.
There is. And
yeah.
I remember when the drive home, we had a conversation where
Yeah.
I had to put in perspective for Sarah. I was like, listen, I played soccer my whole life. I think there's been like maybe one gap in my life where I didn't. And that was when I chose to work rather than play.
Mhm.
And so I know playing against people that get under my nerves, I know that that's a way for me to relieve some of that tension, is to cuss at people and is to play more aggressive.
At
I was
them.
like, at them.
Yeah.
I was like, so you only having a large gap of
Yeah.
of going when you were playing as a teenager to now,
Yeah.
there's going to be emotions that come out that you have
Yeah.
never had to experience or deal with.
Not even a teenager. I was like 12 when
Yeah.
I quit.
So
and
I was
I'm now
like-
23.
So it's like, so there might be times where you have to process what's going on a little bit more. I was like,
Yeah.
that's why I'm more calm about certain more situations, especially with soccer, because I know how to process those. I've spent more time doing it. I
it
was
had
like,
never
so
come up for me before.
Yeah.
Because like you're not yelling at preteen
But you just said
girls.
I don't behave like that.
Yeah.
No. Like I said, I've
Was
never.
it were you disappointed in yourself?
I would think you.
Kind of, yeah, because I was just like, why did I do that? Like, that's not an appropriate way to behave in general. Like,
Not an appropriate way now that you're an adult.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
like, if I was like 13 and I did that, like, it'd be different. I'd be like, yeah, I got him. But it's just like, now that I'm an adult and I have a job and I pay taxes, I'm like, why did I do that? And when I was hanging out in therapy, like, I was basically just like, there were a series of things that happened. Like, the ref wasn't paying attention, like, he wasn't watching the game, and he wasn't seeing this behavior and, you know, saying something or whatever. And I just, like, there was a lot of steps I had to go through to be like, it was fine. Like, I don't behave this way. The guilt was more of like, it was adrenaline, and I have all of these other factors contributing.
But
So,
that's where, again, like talking to this client, I was letting her know and supporting her in the fact that when we do let our kids express themselves like
Yeah.
that, I can get to that guilt.
right.
I can get to that. Here's what I should have done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can get to that. And I as the parent, I can be instrumental in that. Whereas you as an adult, I can't be instrumental in that anymore.
yeah.
Your therapist can, your boyfriend can, I can't. But
Yeah.
as the parent, when I'm sitting there and I'm listening to this, because I've had the opportunity to hear him vent, to hear me vent. I've had that. I've done it myself. But when I've been in that situation when he's a teenager versus an adult,
Yeah.
I get to now kind of get in there and steer that a little bit.
Mhm.
I get to kind of guide him toward problem solving,
Yeah.
finding a solution, understanding, you know, the repercussions of that behavior.
Right.
And so it does help, like now, like you just said, you may have had these feelings like when you were a teenager and you had those experiences, and now you do this, you don't do it as an adult. You kind of handle it a little differently.
Yeah, I will to say, to add on to that, when it came to like me playing video games online or soccer, I would think that there's like a different like type of personality change that comes with that, because there's a lot more competitiveness that's added into it. And me personally, like now that I'm an adult and I play board games with friends and stuff, there's sometimes a little bit of competitiveness, but then afterwards there's not much. So I think when it comes to playing video games, especially competitive ones, or when I am playing soccer, there's a different side of me that I'm okay with leaving out on the field. And I think that's why, like, when it came to you having your burst,
Yeah.
you've never had to associate yourself with what you are on and off the field.
Yeah. It was more if it's all or nothing.
Yeah.
Kind
And
of.
so,
Or even before and now.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because you were just able to do that playing video games and playing soccer, and then here's now, and then you were like, well, I was 12.
Yeah.
And so when we were able to do that in the present with someone that can guide us through that, support us through that, and that's where I was helping my client understand that as a parent, you're that support
Mhm.
to help that person understand that, okay, this is okay here, but we're not going to do that there.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's why probably you felt guilty. I don't behave this way.
No, and I genuinely don't think off the field I ever would do that. Like, ever.
No.
It was just those specific circumstances and that one
Mhm.
dickhead dude who was
I-
just chirping in my ear.
I don't pick fights outside of
I don't
the
either.
field.
Like I said, I'm so non-confrontational that I was more like shocked that I even did it. I was like, where did that come from?
But if someone's stepping on my feet and pushing me and they're twice
Yeah.
my size, I look up to them and I go, bring it on. And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, you know exactly what.
Well, and even saying that, just think of like we were talking about kids at home. That's how a kid feels.
Yeah.
I'm powerless. I don't have control. And this is where I was helping my client understand
Where
that-
is the line?
where
Yeah.
is the line? Like what can I and can I not do? Because I see my parents do this. I see them talk like this. I see them handle this certain way. But what can I do? And
Yeah.
that's where, again, like as a kid, when you're allowed to do these things, express yourself, and you don't have to, like, I had to, growing up, I had to push it down.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So when I got it by myself in my car, and that was my safe place because I could just let it go. Whereas I wanted to provide that safe place at home so you didn't have to find a car or,
Yeah.
a room, a cave, I don't know, somewhere outside where I could help you.
Yeah.
And so kids cussing at home, it might not always be a bad thing. We might need to listen to and kind of get in there and steer it a little bit.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what we could do.
Why
Don't
not?
overreact.
Plus,
Don't
it's
overreact.
funny. It's so
It's funny.
Especially the 2-year-old falling into the toy chest and the
Yeah.
And then
lid
it falling
falling
over,
on
and he
top
goes,
of it.
"Ah, shit!"
Ah, shit!
I'm not lying.
That's so funny.
some funny
so
stuff.
It's so funny.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't expect it. Where did you learn that word, first of all? Second of all,
Oh,
that was
I knew
really
because I'm
funny.
sitting right next to his dad, and I know exactly how his
And
dad
he's
talks.
standing there looking at
And
it
he's like, "That's my son."
I'm a proud dad of that little boy that just said shit.
So anyway,
so
thank you for listening. Thank you guys for joining me on this. This was kind of fun to have
Yeah.
both of you along. So
Gosh.
My Therapy Hat podcast. Listen on Spotify.
oh,
Like
oh, oh,
on Instagram.
Mhm.
listen to our podcast.
The I'm Poop podcast.
The I'm Poop
Hey.
podcast.
Hey.
Hey, plug.
Hey. New episodes every Friday at 9. Hey.
Yeah,
Anyways.
you would get a lot of that. So that's
Yeah.
super fun.
Hey, it's nowhere near the conversations.
No.
we
No, it's
have
not
here.
therapeutic at all.
No.
Mm-mm.
It can't be.
We'll let the listeners
Yeah.
decide
Yeah,
that.
let's
How
let
about
them
that?
decide.
Yeah.
Theirs or mine? Mine or theirs? Mine.
Bye.